and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're already part of the Sprinkle Squad. I'm so happy to see you again, and today we have, I'm calling it the perfect family home, but I mean, I just think it's really cute. Honestly, I'm just so in love with how it came out, and I guess there is a little bit of a story. I guess story sounds a little bit dramatic about how I decided to do this. This actually, if you remember, I more recently did a base game only family home. And originally, so that's when we had the little update for the base game. We got those awesome new counters and tiles and things like that. And so my original intention was for this house to be for that. But then once I started building it, I had like a very specific vision in mind when I was building this. And I felt like I couldn't do it just with base game. So that's when I actually ended up stopping this video and then going and doing that build. So that's kind of why this house became on my list of builds to finish. So if you've been following along on the channel, you know that I've got a backlog of videos that I just haven't actually finished yet. So I'm trying to get through those. And as you can see, this is a 45-minute voiceover. So a lot of the ones I have left are longer builds. So it'll probably take me a little bit longer to actually finish them all. But on that note, if you are hanging out with me, go ahead, grab a snack, get cozy and comfy while we go through this. I love this build just so much. And I will say, I end up swapping the orientation of this build. So originally, I have it facing this way, which is technically the front of the lot, and according to the gallery anyways. But I just felt like it looked better like turned around, so I actually end up swapping what I consider to be the front of the lot. So on the gallery, it doesn't look very good. It's literally just a picture of the side of the house. So just so you know, if you go and look this up, this is already up on the Sims 4 gallery if you want to download it under my ID, Spice and Sprinkles, all one word, all lowercase, and down in the description if you want to see it written out. It won't look quite the same because it's not quite the right side of the build. But you can see here, I was really trying to use base game for the doors and everything. And I just felt like, you know, that was kind of working. But then I really wanted to use that growing together facade there. So I just kind of ended up swapping and not making it base game. And I honestly, I believe, do not quote me, but I believe it was Kate Emerald. I saw one of their reels or shorts or whatever where they did like a little instruction on how to do this curved path, and I've never really thought about doing that, but I decided that I was obsessed with the idea and needed to do it, so I wanted to use it for this home. And you can see I did a lot of messing around with it, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted it to look like. And it does look a little interesting. It's not like super perfect around the edges just because of the nature of rounded walls and things in the game. But I think it turns out so cute. I love it so much. I kind of did a more, for me at least, minimalistic landscaping. And the inspiration for this house actually was, of course, I have the Zillow app, and they randomly recommend me houses, that kind of thing. And I saw this house that had the archways you can kind of see there on the front porch, and I thought it was gorgeous. So I wanted to do that. That was kind of the idea for the front porch there. And originally I was thinking I would make this portion of the build a garage looking. So obviously it would kind of look like one from the outside, and on the inside it would just be part of the house. But I couldn't quite find a makeshift garage door that I liked for the build, so I ended up just making it part of the house, and I think that turned out really well. But I think there was something about the combination of the colors I used here that just, I don't know, it was very satisfying. I think it just came together so well. You can see I'm doing a lot of experimenting, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted. And I think this mixture of that like orangey, light brown, tan kind of color with the black accents ended up working out really well here for this build. And I really love the interior of the house, but it definitely took me a while. So this house is a 4-bedroom, 5-bathroom home, which is why this is such a long voiceover, because it took me a while, especially to clutter everything. And you can kind of see once we get inside the build, I actually end up scrapping the area I decided was going to be the dining and living room and kind of starting that over. And I did leave that in the speed build because I like kind of including the whole process that I go through in order to build. I feel like sometimes it's kind of fun to see that versus like editing it all out. And I ended up using kind of that curved pathway idea. I used it as part of my landscaping too in the front, which I thought ended up being really nice. And I do end up adding a driveway as well. And, I know I say it all the time. I know that we don't really have like real cars in the game, but I just feel like it gives it a realistic kind of look to a home. So I typically try to add that in there. And of course, I end up like matching the cars to the house, which is also funny because I don't feel like that's necessarily the case for people. You know what I mean? Like you could have like a blue car or something and a black and white house. It doesn't actually have to be that way, but I kind of like it. And I really love this, but I guess it's not really a bay window, but like that pop out kind of. I think that's from Get Together there. And I don't know, it looks so good here. I don't use it very often because I feel like it doesn't fit a lot of builds, but here I thought it did. And I'm using those newer hedges that we got for base game as well. I think, was that from one of the events? I think maybe, I can't remember. I feel like we've gotten a lot of new items lately for base game and it's hard for me to remember where they all came from. And so I actually end up fencing in the backyard and creating like a side entrance to the backyard and adding in the trash can and mailbox over there, which I thought was really cute. I don't feel like I've really done that before. And I feel like I do a lot of work on the front yard and then I kind of leave the backyard to do last. So we'll kind of come back to that a little bit later on, just kind of feeling out what I want this space to look like. And I was very back and forth about, so the tree in the backyard, I think I swapped that tree out for a different one. And I thought about putting what am I trying to say? Not a greenhouse, a tree house. Wrong kind of house. A tree house back there that we got with Growing Together. But I kind of didn't like the way it looked, so I ended up not putting it there. But obviously, feel free to swap it out for the tree house because I feel like it would be very appropriate for a family home to have a tree house. I just like the look of that tree better than I end up actually putting there. And we do put a pool in the backyard and a swing set and a little sandbox and all kinds of stuff. So hopefully your Sims have all kinds of things for them to do. I ended up doing a room for a teenager and then I did a nursery and then I did a room for like twins. So there ends up being 4 kids and 1 or 2 parents depending on, obviously how you play. And of course, as usual, if you want to download this and kind of swap things up to fit the family that you're playing with, of course, feel free to do so because this is just kind of how I felt like decorating. This is obviously not the way you have to actually play. Like I ended up decorating. I intended maybe for like a teenage girl there, but obviously you can do whatever you want to do. And I just think it came out really nice. I honestly want to play in this build and we end up having a laundry room and an office and just I think just about, let's see, there's 3 kid bedrooms upstairs. 2 of them have en suites and 1 of them has just a full bath in the hallway. So basically every kid has their own bathroom except for what I envision maybe twins sharing a room, sharing a bathroom. But I think that's that's really luxurious, to be honest. Like having a house that has en suites even for the kids. Like this is a huge, huge house. And like I said, most of the builds I have left to go through now and try to get finished and out on the channel are bigger builds. So hopefully I can start finishing them. That I might have to start mixing in some smaller builds just to keep myself sane, just because there's just so much to do with these builds. And I don't know, I really just love this house so much. I think it came together really nicely. And I was thinking, today, maybe I need to build like a millennial gray house. I feel like I've not done that. I guess maybe because it's not really my thing. So I just haven't really done it, but I think that would be realistic. I feel like, millennial gray is a thing for a reason, right? Like there's a lot of that. And I'm not going to lie, I had a lot of gray in my house and I didn't even know it was a thing. Like I didn't know it was a thing. So I had a lot of gray and then I heard of the term millennial gray and I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of what I've got going on. And I actually just recently started changing out some of my furnishing since it, has been a little bit, and a lot of the furniture I had was like stuff I got in college, that kind of thing, or when I got married, kind of the mixture of both of our stuff. So we're trying to go through and maybe get some new items, that kind of thing. So I'm going more towards this like orangey green kind of thing, which I also think is a specific color scheme that's popular now. So I don't know, I guess maybe I'm going from one thing to another, but maybe that's also why I really like this house, because it's got those orangey tones. And you can see I've got this weird shape going on here for the living room, but I kind of wanted to do something where you have like the TV and then you have a separate fireplace versus having them combined, because I really wanted a large fireplace. Like I think I ended up I started with the one I think from Cottage Living, and then I do end up swapping it out. So once I start working on that, if you see later like the the fireplace just changes, it's because I kind of changed my mind on how I wanted this to look. But I really love the way the living room came out. I ended up using I believe it's the Casanova kit couches and things like that, which you'll see once we get there. And I do end up swapping up the floor plan upstairs, because if you like, I know it was a little fast, but you may not have been able to tell that there weren't really 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms upstairs, but I end up kind of moving things around just a little bit here. And this is actually the living room that I thought was honestly very lovely. And you kind of see it kind of did a little jump cut there. I think that was the point in which I accidentally paused the recording and then forgot to I didn't accidentally, I paused it and then I forgot to start it again, which happens sometimes when I'm going through the process of deciding what I want. If I'm going through a lot of items, I kind of just pause it so you don't have to watch me go through a bunch of items, and then I accidentally forgot to tell it to start again. But I think this came together so nicely, just the rich tones that we have in here. And like I said, I do end up swapping the fireplace out, and I believe I swap I think the fireplace I go to, oh my goodness, I cannot remember for the life of me what pack it is from, but I believe it is the one that actually has a mirror attached to it. So I feel like I did a bunch of work just to get that mirror to be on that fireplace, and then I end up actually just swapping it for something completely different. But I end up using the Secret Sanctuary bookcase over here. I love them so much. I honestly really love that it has the lights in there, just kind of a display area for things. I think that's so pretty. And I also think the arches are really in right now. Like my house has a lot of arches in it, and I think it's really nice. It's like a soft blend versus I guess the traditional squared off doorways and things like that, which there's nothing wrong with them either. I just feel like eventually we're going to go back to that. Just like I feel like fashion and everything, like trends, they just kind of circle around and we come back to things that we've already done, which I think is kind of funny. And you can see I try to add in some tile over here, trying to make it, make sense and look really nice over here. But I think I do end up swapping that stuff out as well, and just kind of making this really nice cozy space. I wanted to make sure I added a lot of skill building stuff in here too. So putting in the chess table, we have an easel as well. So your Sims hopefully should have plenty to do. And of course you have the pool if your Sim wants to work on their athletic skill. I guess if it's cold outside, that kind of thing, then they may not be able to do that. So you may want to add in some workout equipment in here as well. And I'm trying to remember, I think this house has only 2 fireplaces, I believe. I think that's true. And I was trying to combine a bunch of different things there in the center of that coffee table, but of course, sizing down candles and things, the flames don't size down with it. So those kind of looked a little funny to me. So I ended up kind of changing that out. And here you can see me working on what I end up changing it. So I thought maybe I'd put a breakfast nook over there by the bay window, and then having the kitchen on the other half and kind of blocking it off into like a formal dining area. But at this point, this was kind of all of the interior I was doing in one video. And by the time I got to the kitchen here, I think I was, I don't know, kind of losing my focus on what exactly I wanted. So I ended up taking a break and then coming back to it, which I think helped a lot. So I end up, when I come back to it, I get rid of all of this. I knock down the wall and make it a little more open. And I actually end up making the bay window area an office, because I end up changing the floor plan a little bit over where what will be the laundry room, a half bath, and the parents' bedroom. So I kind of just moved things around a little bit, and I felt like it'd be kind of nice to have the office up front with the bay window. I thought would be really nice. And I had a little bit of a hard time here too, trying to match the burnt orange red tones that we had a lot of in the living room, in the kitchen. So I think that was honestly what became a little bit difficult for me. It just didn't feel quite right. I do like this kitchen. I just didn't feel like it was quite what I wanted. I think when I tried to put in this like breakfast nook kind of area over here is when things kind of started falling apart for me, and I didn't feel like it was working super well. Like trying to find a rug and then what size table I wanted. Now, given that this is a fairly large family, it needed to be a large table, that kind of thing. I had thought about putting in one of those benches there and pretending you could sit at it with the table. I think you can do some tricks with like sizing down a chair and kind of combining the items so your sim can still kind of sit there. But anyways, I ended up kind of swapping things around and changing it. And I think that worked out pretty well, to be honest. And it made the space make a little more sense. And I wanted to put like a little table back there, but it just, I don't know, it just felt like it was a little small. So, and I felt like maybe we didn't also need a breakfast nook for this family. So you can see here, I kind of changed the floor plan, and I think it ended up being a lot nicer to have things a little more open here. And I end up actually putting in this really cute coffee bar area over next to the fridge, and I think that was just so adorable. I feel like they're really popular now, like having a coffee tea nook kind of thing, which I guess I kind of have that. I guess I just have an area. Like I have a Keurig and the things to go with the Keurig. So I guess you'll call that my coffee bar area, but I don't have necessarily like a super dedicated space for it. But of course I do have all of the like flavorings and things like that. I don't know why I'm talking about that. I guess because this morning I actually ordered an organizer for all of the flavor pumps I have for my coffee in the morning. So I really do like iced coffee. I'm more of an iced coffee versus like a hot coffee kind of person. And I got in a bad habit of ordering a lot of coffee. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make it at home. And I've come to honestly like that a little bit better. And so I ended up having a lot of the like syrups. So anyways, I got a little organizer for that, which I'm hoping fits really well and works out a little bit nicer. And again, sorry for the total like random thing about my life there. Just, adding a little detail in there. And I feel like, your own life ends up kind of influencing how you build in The Sims, at least a lot of times. So like for me, I usually always put a rug in the kitchen near the sink because that's something I've always had growing up and something I've had just in my home to like for water and things like that happen, so stuff doesn't like necessarily get on the floor. And so that's something I always include in my builds, which I think is kind of funny. Like, let me know if you do build in The Sims, is there something that you always are sure to include because it's something that you have? But I feel like I find out that not everybody does that in their home, and I do end up having to kind of move around those windows a little bit too because they weren't quite centered with the front door how I wanted them to be. And then I end up having this entrance space here with like a little bench and a little table. I imagine maybe they toss stuff on. And I also have a kind of mudroom there by the back door. I have some more kids stuff there, so I think I end up putting some backpacks and things like that back there. I figure maybe they come in and dump all of their things there versus by the front door. And then just kind of combining all of these items, I think ended up looking really nice. And I really do love that new, I believe that's a base game photo collage that we got recently. I think that's so lovely and realistic, especially maybe for a family home, having photos everywhere. And I wanted to put the life and death portrait picture upstairs, but I didn't do that. Of course, if you want to add that, feel free to do so. But the reason I didn't put it was because I always play test it, and that means I have a sim on the lot. I also have a sim on the lot when I do my screenshots because I like having the fireplace lit and that kind of thing. But if you have a sim on the lot, it automatically populates that picture, and then the gallery thinks it's CC. Like, even though it's like an in-game thing, it thinks it's CC, so I try not to. That's why I haven't been using it in my builds, because, or I do in my personal builds, but in the ones I upload to the gallery, I don't, because it just flags it as CC, which is a little bit unfortunate, because if it's flagged as CC, it's harder to find, that kind of thing, which I think that happened to one of my builds. I think it was the life and death build is when I actually figured that out, which was a little unfortunate because I was like, why is it telling me that I have CC in this build? I don't. But anyways, I ended up trying to kind of clutter up a bunch of the space. I figured a family of, what did I say this was? 6, like would have just a bunch of stuff kind of all over the place, but still trying to be a little organized here. And then I do end up, I believe, leaving that mixer there. So your Sims also have a mixer for food prep, which I thought would be really nice. I feel like I don't use a lot of those items that we got with Home Chef Hustle, at least the little appliances like the pizza, the waffle, and then the mixer there, but I thought I would include it here in this honestly gigantic kitchen. And here in the office, I end up putting a little bookcase along with an easel and some, I feel like just like artwork, maybe they have some canvases behind the desk back there. And I think it ends up turning out really cute. I end up using the Life and Death desk and chair in here because I just kind of felt like it matches there. And is this, I believe it's the Refined Living Room kit is where I got this bookcase from in the Casanova pictures, which I love those as well. That little cluster of pictures that you can kind of set on a shelf I think is really nice. I feel like it would be really nice to have a few more of those in the game just to feel a little more realistic. Although I say that, I don't know in my own home if I have a ton of pictures like around my house. Like, let me know, do you have pictures around your house? I feel like I only have a couple, and they're like from my wedding day, just because I ended up, so we had at each of our tables at our wedding, we had a like scalloped black picture frame that I put the table number on, so you know people knew where they could sit. And this makes it sound like I had a huge wedding. I didn't, but I did label the tables, and I got those picture frames like on sale. And I ended up after the wedding taking those and printing photos like of my husband's parents, like my parents, just different people that were close to us, and gifting them one of those frames with a photo in it. So I have some of those in my house, but I feel like that's kind of it. I actually don't have a lot of photos in my house. So I don't know, is that normal or is that weird? I don't know. And I always forget that we got, I think it's with, was it Growing Together? We got those photo collages as well. I think that would be cute around here as well. I feel like I put those in my own builds, but I never use them. So let me know if that is an item that you actually use and want in the builds, then that's something that I can start including. I just never think to, because it's not something that I usually use in my gameplay, if that makes sense. But I figured too, in a house this big, having an extra half bath would be really nice, especially if you have a slumber party, if you have extra people, like gatherings, that kind of thing. Having extra bathrooms for Sims is always a good idea, because somehow they still end up having accidents, even though there's a bunch of bathrooms on a lot. So I just, you know, like to put a little extra in there if I anticipate there being a lot of Sims in this home. And like I said, I do end up including a laundry room in here as well. So if you're someone who doesn't like playing with laundry, you can of course get rid of that, make it another office, a bathroom, something like that. Of course, you could also use it maybe as a small gym, that kind of thing, if you want to add it in there, or a little library or something, skill building room. But I just thought, I don't know, I just really went for it. The realistic, like having the laundry and all that kind of stuff, putting that in there. And then this hallway just kind of leads over into the parents' bedroom, which is honestly a pretty large bedroom, as well as their bathroom. And for their bathroom, I wanted to do a kind of built-in like archway stepping into this really nice luxurious shower, which, by the way, on that note, we just got the, was it Sleek Bathroom and Sweet Allure kits, I believe are the names of them. Oh my goodness, I love them so much. Like the clothes we got, I'm not a huge cast person, but that is such a cute kit. Like the items are so adorable. And honestly, the Sleek Bathroom, I'm in love with. Like those items are so great. You can tell these are made by CC creators because they're gorgeous. Like they're beautiful. I love the items. I love, if you've seen reviews of it, it comes with this like half wall looking piece that is used like as a shelf. Oh my gosh, like I can't wait. I had it in my game when I was finishing this build, but I was like, I'm not going to use it. It doesn't really match the rest of the house right now because it's not what I started with, but I want to use it so badly. And it comes with a beautiful plant that kind of drapes off the shelf as well. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I feel like I need to do a build just to use that bathroom kit because I love it so much. And you can see here, I really wanted to do that step down, like walk-in shower. And I definitely started changing the way the house looked to make sure I could fit it in there. And you can see I finally settled on what I wanted. It definitely took several tries to figure out what I wanted here, but I think it ended up looking so cute. I ended up putting some benches in there, and I honestly ended up putting some like vines in there. I don't necessarily feel like that's super realistic for real life, but it looks really cool and I liked it. And this has been play tested. I don't think I've mentioned that yet. So your sim can use everything. So hopefully you don't have any issues if you download it. But as a reminder, always use bb.move objects when you download any of my builds, because that is something that I have on when I build. And if it's not on, then it is very likely it'll delete items or your sim won't be able to get to stuff. And I think it's kind of funny. I actually started playing The Sims 3 recently. I haven't played that in a very long time. And I was trying to, remember how to do some of the cheats, like doing effectively bb.move objects, which it's a little bit different in that game. I forgot now what the cheat code is for that. But I ended up doing that, and I had a sim who their aspiration was like the family aspiration or whatever it's called, and they wanted 5 kids. Oh my gosh, I don't know who decided that, but that was insane. So I've been playing that, and of course I did all this work, moved them into a house, and then my game crashed. So that was really fun. That happened the other night, and I did all this work and it didn't save it didn't save any of it. So it's cool. It's fine. I will say I still really like building in The Sims 4. I know that The Sims 3 has the color wheel and everything, and people really love it. And don't get me wrong, it is really cool to be able to customize all of that. I personally find it a little overwhelming. I don't know. Like, let me know if you played The Sims 3, what are your feelings about the color wheel? It is really cool, and I love the customization for it. It just feels daunting to use. Like, having everything match the same colors, that kind of thing. So, I don't know. Like, I ended up having, my house is a little more mixed match than I probably usually would, just because I honestly just didn't want to keep having to like custom color all of the items, if that makes sense, because you can do that also I think with the clothes. And I mean, it is super cool. It's just for me overwhelming. It's kind of like I really love playing House Flipper, and I did it a lot like on stream, so if you've seen any of that, and that's over on my Extra Spice and Sprinkles channel if you want to see that. But that is also an awesome game. But they came out with House Flipper 2. I mean, it's been a little bit now, but it also, you can do like customization. I don't think it's technically a color wheel, but you have a lot of options, and it can be very overwhelming for me. So I don't know if it's just me and I just don't like that many options, but I don't know. Maybe that's just not my kind of thing. I rather do almost like presets. Now, don't get me wrong. I want a lot of presets, or like I want a lot of swatches. But I guess changing like the legs and the wood and the fabric and all of the things for just a couch is just a lot for me. And I feel like I went on and on about that, so apologies. But it was something that I literally was doing last night. I was playing The Sims 3, and I ended up adding in this closet area here. I was back and forth about adding in a like walk-in, that kind of thing, but I prioritized the bathroom, to be honest, and adding in a vanity here, which I thought was really nice. I don't always use those just because they take up a decent amount of space. But here in the bathroom, like I said, the shower is just very extra. Like, it is, I don't know, I really like it, but it is definitely, I don't know if I would say super realistic. And I just end up adding in a little bit of clutter, of course, some lighting so your sim can see, which I think is funny. I guess that's not really a concept, is it? Like, if it's dark, if the lights aren't on, I don't think they really care. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's not necessarily an issue that they have. And I know I don't use it very often, but this red shelf here is an item. It is technically considered CC, an item that you can like help place things at certain heights. I was trying to use the trick with the Dream Home Decorator shelf that you can do basically the same thing, but it wouldn't go low enough to match the bench, so which is why I had to pull that out. And I say that CC, but it's not in the build when it's uploaded, so the build is not considered to have CC, but I like to mention it because I don't use it super often, so if you don't recognize it, I just pull it out when I absolutely have to, when stuff doesn't fit quite right, and like raising it up and down doesn't work really well. And I do end up adding a few plants over in the corner by the door, which I think ended up looking super cute over there. I honestly love the way that turned out. And using that Love Struck picture too, I thought matched the color scheme here in the bathroom really well. And I tried to, because this house is so big, I always try to not duplicate photos and plants and things like that, but it probably happened in this build just because it took me forever to get through this build, and I started it in February and only just finished it, so I just don't remember if I'd used a plant or not. And also I was just running out of options, if that makes sense. So this is the teen's bedroom, and I really wanted to use that black floral wallpaper we got recently with the, what am I trying to say, businesses and hobbies pack. And I almost called it like rags to businesses, because I've been watching James Turner's Let's Play called, I think, Rags to Businesses, which is what I was about to call this pack, which is not the name of it. But I kind of thought maybe this sim was maybe not a streamer or content creator or anything, but maybe watches a lot of content creators, YouTube, things like that. And I feel like that is very common nowadays. I feel like a lot of maybe teens and kids want to be YouTubers or want to be content creators, that kind of thing, and like have gaming setups. Like playing games has become a lot more popular and mainstream than it used to be. So I kind of add in the cozy gamer desk and everything in here as well. And I will say, I do end up swapping it out. I end up not using this wallpaper. I end up using the white floral version of it just because it didn't feel quite right. I need to use it again. I'm going to try again probably in another build because I do love it so much. It just felt maybe like too much in this room. And so I end up swapping things out, but I think it looks gorgeous. I think this may be one of my favorite rooms in this build, to be honest. It ends up being so cute. I love having the lights on the wall and everything, and just adding in all of the extra clutter over here I think worked out really nicely. So this sim does have their own ensuite, which I tried to color to match their room, which on one hand, when I do build, sometimes I try to match all of the bathrooms with tile and stuff, and maybe it kind of matches the kitchen, that kind of thing. I feel like that's more realistic to way houses are built versus actually matching the bathroom to the room that's attached to, like down to even like the floor tile and everything, which I'm sure is a thing people do. I just don't know how common it is, especially when it comes to a house that has 5 bathrooms in it. But I did in this build, I end up doing a really cute bathroom in here. I even have a little surface that I figured this sim had all of their just clutter on in the bathroom, whether it was just, I don't know, I feel like teenagers have a lot of stuff. And I say this, I do not have children, but I just feel like that's a thing. Like you just have a lot of stuff, like whether it's makeup, hair stuff, jewelry, just clutter, just things, and or just products or perfumes or colognes or just all of the stuff. So I end up putting a little space there in the bathroom, because this is actually, I think, a 2x4 bathroom, just because it worked out that way. So it was definitely a larger bathroom than maybe I usually do, but I figured too, having a big cluster of posters here on the wall would make a lot of sense for this sim. And of course, just adding in some extra clothes and things like that. I mean, this honestly is a huge room. Like this would be so cool. I feel like if I was like a kid, a teenager, and having a room like this size. And I think the mix of those colors just looks so lovely in that bedroom, especially with all the extra photos and the game posters and things like that. I think turned out really nicely in here. And I do end up swapping out the shower. Originally I thought the pink shower curtain would be really nice, but it just didn't match the other corally pinks I had in here with this life and death sink. So I kind of just ended up swapping that out for one of the newer bathtubs there, and just adding in just extra clutter. I was trying to use that set of towels there, and technically I forgot what pack it was from, but I think it's kind of, it might be it might be growing together, but I feel like it's more meant for kids just based on the pattern. There wasn't a pattern that quite matched what I wanted for this bathroom, if that makes sense. And here in the, I guess the stair landing area, I actually end up putting a fish tank in here, which I thought ended up being really cute. I basically never use fish tanks. We have several of them in the game, but I do end up putting one up here. I figured maybe that's kind of their pet. I thought maybe they would also have a dog or a cat or something like that. Of course, you can add all of that in here if you would like. And then just adding more, I think maybe like family photos up here, I think looks really nice. I put a little bit of kid clutter in this landing area as well, like maybe that's one of their pillows, a little teddy bear, and that newer base game basket of toys. I end up putting that over in the corner as well. And I think the next one we work on is actually the nursery, which I think turned out really well as well. I do know, since I used the medium wall height, I feel like you couldn't tell really in any of the rooms until I got to the nursery. It became a little more difficult to decorate such tall walls, but I think it ended up really nice in here. So we have the crib, we have the changing table, including the trash can that is attached to it, which I found to be very important because your Sims will then just throw diapers anywhere. I mean, they will literally, the diaper will teleport, I feel like, across the house. There'll all of a sudden be a stinky diaper in, the teen's bedroom or something for some reason, because it just gets teleported over there. So just having a trash can there, I feel like makes things a whole lot easier. Or even if you have to drag it to the trash can, there's one right there. But adding in a rocking chair here as well. So I figured, I guess this was for an infant versus a toddler or a newborn, I guess. So you can swap stuff out too if you'd like to. I think this is also the crib that will transform into a toddler bed, and you can also have your sim add in a mobile for it as well. And I think it's funny because I put one on the ceiling, but it's so tall it basically feels useless. But I put it up there anyways. I just find it funny when I do that on a taller wall height because it's so short. And I feel like we have different heights of like hanging lamps. There might be like 3 versions of it. I feel like we need that for the mobiles that you can put over cribs. I feel like that's actually very necessary to have so that it looks like it actually makes sense in that space. And just adding a little more clutter in here. And there's also a school bus going by, so if you hear that, that's what that noise is outside. And I feel like we have several that go by during the day, so hopefully maybe that's the only one you'll actually end up hearing. But this is kind of the bathroom I felt like maybe matched up with the kid for the nursery. So I couldn't figure out the floor plan to get it to have an ensuite that made sense and to where that bedroom was also a normal size. I messed around a lot with the floor plan to try to figure it out, but I figured, you know what, the sim has their own bedroom, so maybe they just have a separate bathroom. They still have their own bathroom, it's just kind of across the hall. And we end up, since we have, I guess the teen has their own ensuite because they're older, and then the other 2 kids share a room, so they deserve their own ensuite. So the sim gets just a separate bathroom, which again still is crazy that they have their own. And then for these 2 sims, I just kind of put a bunch of stuff in here. I kind of combine this bed with a bookcase, like kind of like it was its own little built-in, like one big unit just to store a bunch of stuff in. Again, I feel like kids have a lot of stuff, so having places to put everything would be really nice here. And then I do end up putting the arts and crafts table and I think the chemistry set. I think I also put that in here. I end up, I think, taking that desk out. Originally, I liked the idea of having a desk in here, but I thought having the chemistry set and the crafting table would be even better. So I end up getting rid of that and just kind of rearranging things just a little bit. And I feel like we have a mix of dinosaurs and space in this room. Like maybe it was just like one of the Sims was into dinosaurs, one of them was into space, or maybe they're just into all of the above, or kids just like a bunch of stuff. So there's just a bunch of different stuff in this room. And I tried to give them each a different rug, just like so they have their own separate space, if that makes sense. And then adding in that big clutter toy box there, I think ended up looking really cute too, because I figured there'd just be stuff all over the place. So adding in a bunch of school stuff, a few stuffed animals, and just extra stuff on the wall too. I think we end up putting some posters over the other bed as well, since this bed has the window over it, which I don't know. I am back and forth about having beds by windows. I feel like in real life it's not something I would do, but in The Sims it doesn't really matter. So I'll just do that anyways. And then again, their bathroom is decorated kind of to match their bedroom, so having a lot of like blue and green in here. And then I end up just using a shower instead of the shower tub combo. And I also figured having the shower tub combo in the bathroom that corresponds with the nursery makes sense, since you're going to need to actually bathe them, although you could bathe them in this one or the teens bedroom, but you have several options you can use to actually make sure that the kid stays clean. Although you can do, I don't know, it feels like that magic clean where you can just like, they toss them in the air and there's just like bubbles and then they're like, oh look, they're clean now, you know what I mean? So, you know, that's also an option for you to use, obviously, for taking care of your toddler. And then back here I do end up actually putting in some of the fountain rock pieces we got from Riviera Retreat, that kit, and I think it ends up looking really nice back here and is definitely like extra. Like if you have a rock formation that creates like a waterfall into your pool, like that would be amazing. But I just kind of added all of the things in this build. Like this really, I went all out. This is a 200,000 simoleon home, which is kind of insane. Like that's so much. I usually don't reach that high of a budget for my builds. Of course, I don't do too many larger builds just because it takes me so long and it becomes a little bit daunting. But I do end up putting the jumping, diving thing rock in here. I think it's interesting that we have those, but we don't have just diving boards or like a slide, that kind of thing, which I think would be kind of cool. I feel like an extra, I mean, not that I necessarily am advocating for more kits, but like that could be kind of interesting, a way to like spruce up some of the exterior of the house, like patio kind of stuff. We do have some stuff packs for that, but I feel like it's been a little bit since we've gotten anything for it. And I do end up putting a little fountain and the little bubble thing at the bottom here of the pool, because I don't know, I just always like the way it looks to have the bubbles coming up. And I definitely struggled a little bit with how to lay out the kids space back here as well, because I definitely wanted there to be space for them to do things. And we actually end up on the back porch is where I put the grill, and we actually end up putting a bar and some counters in there as well. So just instead of putting just more seating, and then we have a full dining table over closer to the driveway side of the yard as well, and adding in a garden area. So again, another thing for your sim to kind of do, but we put a swing set over in the corner. I also include the toddler slide and the toddler pool. Again, just, you know, having plenty of stuff for your sims to do. I really had thought about putting a ball pit in here, but I do end up taking it out. Instead, I include a sand pit for them, and I kind of just draw it off with a little bit of fencing. And in case you didn't know, if you use the sand that came with Island Living, your sim can actually build sand castles and stuff. I was about to say castles, really weird, but they can actually build sand castles in it, which I thought would be kind of fun and an extra touch. Actually, in the screenshots, I had a sim build a sand sculpture over there, so you can see what I'm talking about. And also, so you know that I am telling the truth, that you can actually build if you're using the Island Living sand. So that was something I learned maybe a year or two ago, and I thought that was so cool that if you use that, you can actually build it. So that's what I use when I do like little sandboxes for Sims, just because I think it's really adorable. And then of course I end up putting the water balloon thing and a toy chest over there, along with that tent, which can be used by both toddlers and by kids. I don't think infants use it, but I could be wrong. I feel like every time I play with infants, I'm so busy trying to make sure they hit their milestones that like they don't do much else other than trying to hit their milestones, which I think is kind of funny. But just adding in a little bit of decor over there. And of course I do end up adding in a little more landscaping around everywhere to kind of match the rest of the build. And of course we do end up adding a few rocks in there, some lighting, and I do go back with terrain paint. So hopefully the terrain paint does actually come off the gallery. What was uploaded did have it, so hopefully it works and it doesn't just disappear on you if you move, like if you leave the lot, which I can't believe they still haven't fixed that. I really wish they would fix that, where you leave the lot or something and then all of a sudden all your terrain paint is gone, which is also why I tend to try to use like actual flooring for my pathways instead of using the terrain paint, but terrain paint would allow you to be a little more organic in the path, which I would really enjoy, but I just feel like I don't want it all to be deleted. So I do end up also adding in the flower arranging table over here too, because I thought maybe that would go with some of the gardening they were doing. Maybe that's a hobby that they have. So again, just kind of squeezing in as much as I can on this lot so your Sims don't get bored and have plenty to do, because I have no idea what these Sims do for a living, so I don't know what kind of skills they would need to have. So of course you can add whatever you need to make it make sense for whatever your Sims actually do or whatever hobbies they have. Like if you need a cheerleading mat or a basketball court, that kind of thing, you can kind of add that in there as well if you want to change things up. But if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you have a really sweet day. Bye everybody.
I would be up waiting for you if you had to leave. I would wait a lifetime if you were at sea. I just wanna say that I feel that our love is real. Maybe we should hurry up and seal the deal. Take you there. I would give it all away to do it all again. Make our love a story that would never end. Never thought I'd feel so alive, looking in your eyes. I just wanna love you till the day I die. Oh, oh, I just wanna love you right. Oh, oh, love you till the end of time. I just wanna hold you for forever. Every day you're making me better, 'cause a love like this is rare, and I wanna take you there.